Okay, so what you have on the right hand side, and some of you, if you have a wide screen, you might see it this way. But what you have essentially on your right hand side is you have create, and then if you go to the next one, you have modify. So you can create an object, you can modify an object, and under create you have tons of things. You can create any 3D primitive, you can create a box, and you can draw out the box in the top view, and then you can move the mouse up and down to adjust the height. If you're not happy with it, you can go to modify and change it to 10, 10, 10. You can modify. You can also change the segments. Now let me increase the segments. Now unless you actually ask it to show you the segments, it won't show it to you, and I think F4 shows you the segments in a shaded view. So this is a shaded view, these are wireframe views. And all of that can be changed by right clicking on these things. You can say show me a shaded view, okay, instead of showing me a wireframe view. Coming back to create, you can create 3D primitives, you can create extended primitives. There are some default ladders, doors, windows for architects, there are some fluids. All of these are under create. You click on any one of them, you will have more options. I by and large play with standard primitives and extended primitives as a starting point. Then under create you have 2D shapes. You can create 2D shapes like the 2D shape I showed you. Text is a 2D shape. You can type text and bevel it up. You can create lights, cameras, space warps, and so on and so forth. It just goes on. You've got special lights. Now any object that you create, of course you can modify it, as in you can twist it, you can bend it, or you can move. So if I want to move this up, just right click, move it up. I right click to activate the viewport, okay? So if you left click, what happens is you might lose your selection. So if I have this object selected and I click on this viewport, I lose my selection. You can even work in this viewport. You can change the sizes of the viewports. So you just need to be very comfortable about your X, Y, and Z. So that's X, that's really my Y there. But it changes in X, Y, and Z because it always shows you X and Y. It tries to give you the graph X and Y. But regardless of that, you must be comfortable of whether you're moving up, down, straight, so on and so forth. So you can move objects, you can rotate them. So to rotate in this view, just remember you want to rotate the yellow angle from any of the 45 degrees. You pick it up and drag up and down. It is rotating about the anchor. So the anchor in this case is below. You can snap rotate it. So these are snap rotation, snap movement in 3D. So the magnet is a snap. It sort of snaps. If you want to change the pivot, it's a bit tricky. You need to go down to the third button, go to pivot, affect pivot only, and center to object. Once you do that, I'll turn off affect pivot only because my pivot has already been affected. And now you can see it turns from the middle. So you have your create options here. You have modify options here, the modifiers. We'll have a look at them in a minute. And then you have move, rotate, scale. At the bottom, what you have is So you have these camera icons. This one will put everything in the middle. And then you have one which will only put the selected items in the middle. You can hover over any viewport and use the middle mouse button to zoom out. Okay, so you have move on top, the transform, move, rotate, scale on top here. Anything that you create gets listed here. So if you make another object and parent it to this object, you can do your parenting and child relationships here by just dragging and dropping. These are your camera viewports. This keyframing bit we will look at later on. Anything can be keyframed. You can have one material in one keyframe, another material in another keyframe, and somehow Max will do the interpolation and render the in-betweens. Okay, so keyframes we'll look at later. So there are three parts in this cluster: model, material, motion. And we'll look at the motion, which is animation, later. There are many other primitives here. You can have a play with them. You can try to go to the top view, put a sphere, and then go to the side view and get your sphere sitting on top of your box. So today during your plays, you can try to align things and try to make a scene of primitives. That's okay. Okay. But one of the things which I showed you earlier, I want to demonstrate as a method of modeling. Next week we will get into something easier, text animation. So today let's get into radially symmetrical objects. So what I did earlier was I went into create, plus is add, create, geometry, no. I went into shapes. I want to create a shape. I said I want to create a line. Now because I want the left side of the line, let me drag this point here. Because I want the left side of the line, and this is the front viewport, by the way. If I just press G here, that's front here. If I want the left side to be aligned so that I can spin around that axis, then I'm going to use snap. So what I really did was I tried to make a wine glass, and all of the chess pieces, you can make the entire chess board using this technique. The horse is needs an extrude, but apart from the horse, I think all of them can be made using this technique. So I started here because these points have to be aligned. Now these points have to be curved, but still you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just clicking, clicking, clicking. What I've got here is just a basic outline which I'm actually going to smoothen up. And I don't need that point in the middle, but it's okay, I'll leave it for now. So I've made this shape, okay? I'm going to turn my snap off. Next I'm going to go into modify. If I open up line, you will see I have vertex, I have segments, and I have splines. So I'll go and actually remove this extra vertex. Especially when you're dealing with games, every vertex count, every polygon count is important. You have to have a very low poly model. So these vertices here, and if I press Control, I can select this one as well, and these two as well. These vertices, I'm going to right click and choose smooth. I might even move them around this bit just to make the glass edge a bit thin. I'm just changing the profile. I can do it even afterwards. I can do it even afterwards at the risk of my machine crashing, but on a good machine you can do it quite easily. So you can then select, you can just drag, select, you can right click, change. So you can right click, select, make this a corner, or you can right click, that's the corner. You can right click, make it smooth. So once I have this, and there's vertex, there's segment, there's spline, right? Once I have this to my satisfaction, I come and click on line. Then under the modifier list, I just press L, and the first option that comes up is Lathe. So Lathe is good. I choose minimum. Now if I click here, it should fit all of my things in the viewport. I'll just zoom out a bit. You can make it smoother. You can actually make it 30 segments, depending on what you need your glass for. If it's a small prop going to fit in a scene, and you can see that thing in the middle, that ugly thing in the middle. That comes if you do not weld the core. If you weld the core, you can see. What happens is when it sweeps, that point gets duplicated 30 times. But when I weld it, those 30 points, these 30 points, they become one. If it's replicated 30 times, there is a problem in the shading. So I'm going to stop this video here. I'll try and make it available now. All I did was I went into created a line. I went into modify. I modified the vertices, made them smooth, and from this modifier list I applied a lathe. I'll just unselect the vertex, come out, and I'll show you another modifier. You have things like twist, you have things like bend. If there are enough polygons, enough segments, then you can apply a bend. Let me just try a Y bend. Yeah, see that? So I can bend my glass. And I can keyframe this as well. And I can have an animation of this, if it serves any purpose, that is. I can put a plane. I can go to create 3D objects and just create a plane. In the top view, I'm just creating a flat plane. And in the side view, I will move that plane down. So I now have a table and a glass. You can make a bottle and a table and a glass. Okay, I'm going to stop the video now, make it available. See how you go with this. Play with it. You like Blender, use Blender. Okay.